So I'm assuming most of you by now have been aware of the lack of updates, to say the least. So I just wanted to make a quick video addressing that, as well as speak about my future plans for the game and what I'm up to nowadays. So let's get into that. Well, the first question that probably needs answering immediately is the project dead? No, it is not, and I don't have any plans of killing it off. But I'll get into the specifics in a second. The past year or so for me has been quite hectic, to say the least. I've moved from Syria to the US, I've started my degree in engineering, and I'm looking into getting a job as a remote software developer. So understandably, I haven't had much time to work on the game. So the workflow of the project is set up in a way so that I have all the different systems within the game being developed in their own environments, those usually being a Unity project or a Blender file, that then get ported over into the main game project once they've been completed. So let's go over the state of each of these submodules now, shall we? So the Project Cars model status could probably best be described in being in a literal sense a disrepair. And most of you are probably wondering how on earth a 3D model could take 2 years to just get to a state like this. Well, the answer to that question consists of multiple parts. The first part to the answer is the fact that this was my very first 3D model. I had zero modeling experience going into this. And so what would end up happening is I'd complete a nice chunk on my to-do list for the model in, let's say, a span of 3 months. And so logically speaking, I'd continue going down through that list, modeling one part after the other. But then I'd realize that the stuff I modeled previously doesn't look nearly as good as the stuff I just modeled. And that would be down to the fact that I would have just gained a substantial amount of experience relative to my total experience beforehand. And so I'd mark those models I've done previously as needing to be redone. Some of these parts I've redone multiple times now. The engine has been redone twice, which in itself was a mini project. And so that vicious cycle would repeat itself till any new experience I've gained modeling became a smaller and smaller part of my total modeling experience. The second part of the answer is going to be a recurring theme throughout all of these modules, and that's scope creep. I kept increasing the scope of the project over time while I was learning more and more about Unity and game development in general. And so I started modeling what I'd now consider unnecessary things, like all the mechanisms in the doors, the windshield wiper mechanisms, a disgusting amount of detail on the engine, drum brakes, and rear end, and every single hydraulic line, vacuum line, electrical wire and linkage, and a complete HVAC system, since I later decided that the game would have a time cycle of a full year, rather than something like a repeating day or week. Couple this with a giant list of upgrade parts that I have for practically every part on the vehicle, and you could see I basically had no chance of completing the model within a reasonable amount of time. And the last thing that's also a recurring thing but has thankfully been resolved now is my abhorrent electricity and internet access back in Syria. I had about 4 to 6 hours of usable electricity through the day, and I'd always try to maximize every ounce of it to try and work towards the project. Unfortunately, this would also lead to sometimes files corrupting when my computer suddenly shuts off because I miscalculated when the next power outage would be. And this would usually set me back a couple weeks worth of progress. What I then called the finalized vehicle physics has been showcased on the subreddit before, if I recall. So why haven't you guys seen a video of the gremlin driving around in the main project? Well, as you can probably tell by the to-do list, scope creep eventually got to me. While in the process of optimizing the physics and getting ready to port it over, I started doing more in-depth research into the subject, which eventually led to a full research project consisting of hundreds of Chrome tabs, a decision of writing my own physics engine, and the creation of a vehicle physics Discord server. In all honesty, I think this was a win in the end. as I've now helped hundreds develop their own physics, and I'm currently working on a new implementation for a tutorial series on the subject, as there's very few digestible resources out there. The graphics side of the project is probably the most fragmented piece of them all, with its guts currently spread around 3 separate Unity projects, under 3 render pipelines, with a to-do list that looks something like this. Initially, I planned to go with the now deprecated default renderer, with plans to use the built-in tools in Unity, like the Unity particle system, their material system, and a few third-party shaders to do with things like clouds, vegetation, and the like. But similar to the model, once I actually gained experience, scope creep started to take form, as I drastically changed my goals for the graphics of the game. I went through a graphics development spiral, learning everything from PBR rendering equations, shader graph in HLSL, volumetric rendering techniques and particle systems, to render pipeline architecture and the beginnings of my own render engine in OpenGL. With my path to my progress currently lying within 3 Unity projects, dozens of deleted ones, with references and resources consisting of hundreds of saved YouTube videos, and tens of different papers and books saved on my computer, and a plan for a game engine that never ended up materializing due to recent time constraints, and a general burnout over 3 years of frustrating development. With all that being said, what I alluded to in the beginning of the video remains true. The project is not dead. However, my plans for how I'm going to progress from here on out have changed. r/MySummerCarUSA will be closing down, and in its place will be a new community, r/Forgotten Dreams game. This will be the place to continue the discussion of the game, as well as where I'll continue to post future devlogs. The original model, the UVC Goblin, is being shelved for now, and a new one, the Andalusia Pinata, will be taking its place as the project card because of a couple reasons. The first being, as mentioned before, the model's complexity has grown to such an immense level that continuing work on it now wouldn't do it any justice. And the second reason being, I'll be officially working towards a demo of the game first, before working on the full Steam release with the Goblin as the main project car. The demo will be developed using Unity and released on itch, while the full game will be developed with its own game engine, development of which, including the demo of the game, will all be uploaded onto this channel. All of this will be in the upcoming months hopefully, as currently I'm working on those vehicle physics tutorials mentioned before, as well as an asset that will be purchasable on the Unity asset store. Finally, I want to thank those who stuck around all this time when all I could offer back was radio silence, and I hope to keep you guys posted in the near future. And with that, I'll see you soon.